All right. I'm pretty sure we should be active on all avenues here. So, today is October 11th, 2025, and it is 12:40 p.m. and I have yet to drop the MP3 download for the daily piano for Patreons today. And then after that, I have to upload it and put it in the playlist for all the supporters because I have different tiers. So this is the raw recording. This is the dry audio. And the way this works is the top one here, there, this left channel. That's the shotgun microphone that I have underneath the piano. And that one is like you have the piano soundboard and then the shotgun is like right up at it and barely turned up. So it isolates the piano. And then on the bottom here, the right channel, this is the one that's kind of like floating in the air in front of me where I sing into. So last night I was actually like singing. Okay, dry audio is bad. It is what it is, but that's that. You want that raw, dry audio. And when I'm working on instrumental piano, I like to cut out that floating studio microphone. I have this here. I'm listening to the raw audio as a bass. I want to kind of hear what the isolated piano sounds like mixed with the room. So that way when I master the audio in mono with just the shotgun, I kind of know what I'm targeting. And I have been doing this for a very long time on Patreon, and I have created a stable environment for my recordings of the grand piano instrumentally with the shotgun, where I have all these presets that I have made that I can keep applying the same presets all the way through as I process my audio and balance all my levels and all that kind of stuff. But that took a long time. I'm always experimenting with different ways, and these are the settings that I have landed on that I'm going to be using. None of the stuff that I do is per se a default setting. Like you start with default settings, and then you like save them and call them what they are, or you'll use default settings and just change a few parameters. But when it comes to piano recording, you have to first have a clean recording. So I'm just listening to make sure that this is a clean recording, because sometimes, especially like for this case, I was live streaming simultaneously while playing the piano, and my microphones, I have splitter cables connected to them, so that way they're like little Y cables, so that way one of them goes into the dry studio Adobe Audition, and then the other cable goes into the live board for live streams, where you apply like your reverbs and your equalizers to make it sound as good as possible when you're live streaming. And it's got compressions and all that kind of stuff. So that way I can live stream, sound good live streaming, but at the same time I'm getting dry audio that if something good happens in the moment, I have it and I can actually master it and release it for daily piano, but I have to have recordings. Otherwise, I can't make daily piano. And right now, I'm kind of like on par with myself, where I'm playing one day and then like the next day I can like process audio and do it. Or, you know, sometimes I get ahead of myself and I have things pre-scheduled. And I do have old recordings from June to fall back on should I not have any more improvisational flows that are in line with what I'm trying to do with the daily piano as a vibrational healing factor. So that's why I tuned my piano to 432 hertz. So this recording sounds good. So now I need to first copy just this left channel, and I'm going to grab even that dead noise at the end because I need some sort of room tone sample to kill the noise. We'll get into that. So I'm going to copy that left channel. And what is this untitled one? Let's close that. We don't need that. let's make a new file, and we're going to paste that into there. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to save this as, and we're going to call this, we go into, this was yesterday, live, improv at end, good. So this is going to be live improv, and I'm going to call this MD01. No, wait, no, this is shotgun. Shotgun raw. Shotgun. So that way I know that's just the isolated shotgun track. There we go. Now, once that saves, then I can start toying around with it. Okay, so you may not realize it, but if I hover my mouse over on the right here, there's like a dB level, and on each level here, there's like that flat line. So if I hover over there and I scroll, I can zoom in. And when I zoom in, like these things are really, really quiet and they exist. And this is basically like the sound of silence. The sound of silence, but that exists throughout the entire track. So in Adobe Audition, I want to grab a nice clean sample of that. So I'm going to probably, that's a good few seconds of it. That's a good clean sample of it. So if I have that selected, I'm going to hold Shift and then P, and then that's capturing the noise print. And that's just a hotkey where if I were to go to Effects and I go into, oh gosh, where does this exist? Noise reduction / restoration. And then you go to capture noise print, which is here. And then it shows you Shift P. And then noise reduction process, that's where you're going to use whatever you captured. So before I do that, I'm going to select the entire track. Now that I have the entire track, let me zoom out. So if I just hover over the audio and zoom out, then I'll zoom over the entire timeline. If I zoom out with the scroll while I'm hovering over the dB, I'll zoom in on the levels. So I'm going to zoom way the F in here so I can see like all that kind of dead space and other things that exist here, so we can see what happens now. So right now, like the overall line, we're looking at like minus 61 to 69 dB. Like it seems like it doesn't make a difference, but it does. By killing the noise that exists underneath your audio, you kind of make it louder without making it louder because you've reduced the noise. That's what they call this. So I'm going to hit Control Shift P. So that's the shape there of the noise print that I captured. So if I were to like to go here and hit Shift P, that changes the noise print that I've captured. So let me go back in here and select the dead noise again, Shift P. That's what I want to reduce. So if I hit Control A, I'm selecting the entire thing again. So now we got the whole thing selected. There's these parameters here where you can reduce the noise by however much you want to do it if you still want to have a faint existence of it. I'm going 100%. I'm 100% in it all. Like it just so I have clean audio. This is like that really low stuff. So I'm just going to apply that noise reduction and just give it a moment, and it's applying that across the entire thing. It's just going to cancel out. It basically plays that inverted. And back in the day, you would record audio for a long time, and then you would take that audio, you would flip it and lay it on top, and that would cancel out and anything to zero. So we're just canceling out. There you go. So now if I zoom in here, like we've reduced that to practically nothingness. So I hit Control Z to undo that. So here's what we had, and then we undo that. So now I can zoom out here. And now that I've done my noise reduction, my audio is a lot cleaner. And now when I bring things up and start manipulating things, I'm not also manipulating that and bringing that up and further making my music sound terrible when you play it through the player. So I'm paranoid. I can't just sit happy with a noise reduction. So there's a hertz frequency, the 60 hertz ground frequency. All electronics in the United States kind of like exist and emanate this hertz frequency, 60 hertz. So while I have the entire thing selected, if I go in here and I go into it goes filter and EQ, you see FFT filter, and it's showing all these different bands. And if I go here, this is one of those like presets. So they actually have, if you're in Europe, kill the 50 hertz ground loop. That's where their electricity. But in America, 60 hertz ground loop. And that's just going to take everything in the 60 hertz frequency, just going to kill that, and it just helps clean up your audio just a little bit more. And then all things in 3, just for further paranoia's sake, because this is just a me thing. If I hit Control R, that goes to the last thing that you did. And the last thing that I did was this FFT filter. So I'm back here in the FFT filter, and I have done my noise reduction with the room tone, and I've done the 60 hertz ground loop. I've killed that. Now, the shotgun microphone by nature, sitting there underneath, there's like these low, like you can kind of see it in the 0 to 100 hertz frequency, just like this like little like rumbling. And this is just like a filter that it just applies over your audio and kind of helps reduce that. So it's called Kill the Mic Rumble, and just brings everything from 0 to 100 down. And now when I start amplifying things, I'm not amplifying that too. So there we go. Now, this improv started. Well, we'll do the cutting later. We're listening to it right now. So I'm going to hover over the mouse here on the dB and scroll to zoom out. So 0 dB is on top. We don't want to break 0 dB. And you can see this is very quiet. It peaks at like minus, not even, minus 12, minus 11-ish. Like I'm talking about like this point is where it peaks. That's the loudest point. So if I were to zoom in, yeah, that's like barely minus 12. That's the loudest that this track goes to. Select the whole thing. And we want to hover in the yellow zone at the end of everything when all is said and done, between what we call the yellow zone. You can see it here on the left where things are bouncing. The green basically means it's super quiet, and the yellow is like that moderate, nice zone. Red is like really loud, the peak. And when you break 0, then your audio kind of risks like distorting. Unless you're working with like digital stuff that doesn't exist, it exists theoretically, you can go beyond. And then we're talking about minus 32 floating, which will happen when you're in the multi-track, and that's a whole nother conversation in itself. But I'm recording the piano with a shotgun microphone, and this is where I exist. So for now, we're going to go into a multi-track. We'll export, bring it back in. But for now, I'm manipulating this audio recording that was a moment that happened yesterday. So now that I've done everything, before I do anything, over here, there's this like little box thing. That's my amplify tool. And if I were to grab this, I can go up and down and I can amplify this. Now, I could easily just, if I want to do this, it doesn't really sound good. It gets like really like brittle and teeny because I'm really stretching that waveform. So every time I do my amplification between processes, because I'm trying to bring this up and up and up because it's really quiet, because I was playing super pianissimo. So I'm only going to bring it up by like 2 or 3 dB at a time between processes. So right now I'm just bringing it up by 3 dB. That's just a little nudge. It's barely stretching, and it rebuilds that waveform. Now I'm going to apply my first process, because I'm using the shotgun mono. So I've doubled it in the left and right. So I'm essentially working in mono. And now I'm doing my equalizer bands, because the shotgun microphone, it hears things the way that it wants to, not the way that we actually hear things. So in order to help make this sound more like the way it sounds for me when I'm sitting in my room playing piano, I'm going to start working with the equalizer bands to make the piano tones sound more like what it really sounds like, because it's the shotgun microphone is kind of like muddled. It's very low, heavy. And so I'm going to go into the equalizer bands, and I'm going to start with the 10 equalizer band. And this is the low. I'm just bringing down the lower frequencies just a hair. And then on the bottom here, there's like a gain. So when it outputs, I'm again only going up by 2 decibels. So I'm just applying a 2 dB output to that equalizer band, just bringing down those lower frequencies, so that way it's not so shotgun mic-y. And then I'm going to go into, before I do that, I'm going to amplify again, just by like 2 or 3 dB. So this time I'm going to go like 2.7. That's good. All right. Now I'm going to go into my 30 equalizer band, and these are some fine tunings. So I'm going to go 30 equalizer band, and this is the generic mud removal. This is like so I've already like brought down the 160 or 100 to 0 frequencies like all the way down. So this is like 100 to 500 frequencies, and we're just doing a slight dip. It's like barely anything, you know, but it's enough to make a difference that it makes it sound not so muddy. Like you can preview the way it sounds before versus after. And I know you guys probably can't hear it because it's a live stream, but in my headphones, it makes a difference. So I'm going to apply that, but I'm going to change these parameters and make the output 2 dB because again, this is a quiet recording, and right now I'm already peaking at -6. So as it's applying that, it's also, you know, bringing up the volume a little bit. So this will just like easy. So there we go. So it maintained. Now I'm happy with peaking there. We'll just go maybe like 1.5 this time. All right. Now we're going to go back in and go effects, filter EQ, 30 equalizer band. Now there's one here that's called a gentle mid cut. You know, you hear people say, oh, I scooped the mids. Oh yeah, I scooped the mids. And when you scoop mids, it works for many different reasons. For the piano, the frequencies of the piano exist very heavily in the mid frequencies. So let me close this up. So let me go back in here to that FFT filter thing where you actually like see the waveform playing. It exists in that 200 to 1K frequency very heavily. So if I go into this 30 equalizer band and I just scoop, just gently, you know, from that 600 to like 2.5-ish, and it's just like a gentle little scoop. What this does, wait, let me change the output to 0. If people were to listen to the piano recording and then like turn up the volume, you're turning up that middle frequency, and then that's why you have equalizer bands where people start playing with things and bringing up the bass, bringing down the treble, bringing down the mids. Well, the frequencies of the piano, as you start amplifying, if you don't scoop those mid equalizer bands in the actual waveform, you're amplifying that as you turn up the volume, and it can get very abrasive to the ears, especially if you're listening to it in headphones. So just by doing that gentle mid scoop, it makes it so that way turning up the volume on a piano recording isn't so abrasive. Now, this one, it does have a lot of higher note frequencies, but not so much. If I start playing like the really high frequencies, sometimes I'll do a high frequency scoop, but this one's not so bad. Now, from here, it's still in mono. So I'm going to go into, under the effects panel, there's this special tab, and it's got all kinds of things, you know, distortion, Doppler suite, guitar suite, mastering, loudness meter, like all this kind of stuff. I like to use mastering, and this gives you different parameters that you can tweak. And this, I have messed with this myself a lot. And there's different presets that you can set, you know, like make room for the vocals. You can do a mid enhancer because some things need an enhancement of the middle frequencies, you know, stereo to mono, but we're already mono. We don't want a double mono, you know, subtle clarity, and you can see everything like changes. So you just find something that you just want to start as a base with, and you can start tweaking things. You know, it has reverb, an exciter, a stereo widener, there's a loudness maximizer, and then of course the output gain. After you do the process, how much a gain is it going to output when it rebuilds? So, and I have all these different settings with all these different numbers, and these are different dates. And, oh shoot. Oh, here it is. 772025. That's the last one that I did. So, this one I made the curve, like you can go on these like little points and you can like move them around. You know, I can like, there was a way that you can go into a mode and plant new points if you wanted to, but you can move things and manipulate them to do different things. And you just kind of, you know, mess around with it and find out and see what sounds best. You can add extra reverb and turn up the exciter and change it to a retro exciter. And then this little green button, like this tells you here's how it sounds right now. And then this green button kind of gives you a sort of sample of what it will sound like when you apply it. So, and again, we're live streaming. You guys are listening to it. You probably can't hear it, which is why, like, when you're working in audio, I do recommend working in headphones, or if you have the money and you can get good studio monitors, which I don't like. I don't have. I have my good headphones. That's good enough. But one thing to keep in mind is I just realized this is kind of loud. Let me turn this down. If you're going to work in headphones, you need to make sure you turn your volume down in your headphones, because if you start bringing up the volume, your ears will naturally compress to compensate for things coming in. And then all of a sudden, you're processing audio with compressed ears. And a lot of times there are people like, oh, every time I'm processing audio, it sounds too bright, or it's because your ears are compressed. And when you're listening to things and you want it to sound good, because your ears are already compromised, you're compensating for that. And so you're bringing up more brilliance. And then by the time you export it, you're like, whoa, why is it so brilliant? So go back to the drawing board and just take off your headphones and just step away from it. Just take off your headphones and just walk away and let your ears kind of reset for, 10, 15 minutes. Take 5. Sometimes, producers, they'll be like, take 5, because they need to take off their freaking headsets and be like, well, I need to decompress and just like, go away. And then once you feel refreshed, then put your headphones back on, and then you'll see there's a difference in the way things are sounding. It's amazing what the human body does. So to kind of prevent that from happening, it helps to turn the volume down in your headphones. And then after you export things, and when you're listening to the final edit, whatever, then turn the volume like you would normally, like a normal person would. Not a studio producer, but and I'm a nerd. Like, all my settings, whenever I listen to any kind of recording, I always listen to everything flat. All all my settings on my headphones, on my apps, whenever I listen to music, everything is flat, 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 flat. So that way I can listen to what the studio producer actually had in mind. Because once I start adding my own equalizer band and saying like, oh, I'm going to do jazz function and pop function, I'm messing with what the studio producer actually wanted me to hear when I put my headphones on. So that's just me personally. I like to listen to music in flat. So again, let me just reset this. Go to the setting that I made. There we go. So the setting that I landed on is I made this curve this way, and my reverb is set to 55%, and I used a tube exciter at 55%. I set my widener to 22%, the loudness maximizer to 11%, and I have the output gain to 2, but I don't need it this time because I've been doing subtle amplification. So I'm just going to go 0 on that, and we're just going to apply that. Because again, in order to get to that hot spot between minus 12 and 0 dB, we're going to go into the multi-track with this new waveform, and there we exist in minus 32 floating, and we can start stacking things to saturate the audio so it sounds more full and less small. I don't know, audio, it's hard to explain audio. You really, when it comes to playing with these programs, just take your recording and just go to any kind of setting and just move things all the way up, all the way down, and see what it manipulates, how it changes things. And just go through everything. And you can always hit Control Z. Control Z. The school of Control Z is how I've learned to do my recordings for myself the way that I do them. So whatever your setting is, don't worry about having to buy fancy equipment or all that kind of stuff. And again, this is just one program, Adobe Audition. There exists so many audio softwares out there for recording waveforms with your microphone, with an input, and you can manipulate it, so that way it sounds good through your headset. But ideally, you want to put your music through as little processing as possible, just like how you don't want to over Photoshop a picture, you don't want to over Photoshop your audio. You don't want to you don't want to over you don't want to over process your audio because at a certain point it just loses its integrity. So especially when you're recording acoustic, music, when you want to start doing like electronica music and start distorting things and like playing with that kind of stuff, then by all means, you can do all kinds of crazy stuff with these programs and really warp the audio. Like let's take for example, I can take this and go into where are we going? Let's go to modulation and we'll go to the chorus flanger here, and I can do mid tension here. Let me turn up the volume so you can hear that. So if I turn it off, here's what it sounds like. If I wanted to give it that kind of like, I don't know, that trippy like feel, I can apply this mild tension chorus flanger effect. And then again, if I wanted to, I can take this as a bass line and I can move the width all the way down and see what happens if I increase the speed of the pulsations of the chorus. I can, check the flanger, chorus, check the intensity, the transients. Let's bring that all the way up. Let's see what happens if I turn everything down except for that. We have to speed to 5 hertz and the width to 38%. Okay, now we'll bring up the intensity to 100%. Let me see what that does. So right now, let's put this at like 40%. Because maybe if it's just a little bit more subtle, it might have a nice timbre that you like. And again, audio production, sound production is all in the ear of the beholder and the creative. Like I'm trying my best here. Let me close that. Let me just cancel that. I'm trying my best to capture the grand piano as it sounds to me here as best as possible. It's a delicate task. Okay, so we've already processed all this stuff shit here. So I'm gonna go here and because this is like garbage here where I'm just kind of like noodling. And then you can see here where I let go of the sustain pedal and it kills, and then I restart here. So this is the beginning of the flow at the 38-second mark or 58-second mark here. That's where I want to start. And that's very quiet, very subtle. So how many seconds if I zoom in here? That gives me a couple of seconds of dead space. Let's go here. And we'll just delete all of this. And then if I select this stuff here and amplify, bring that all down here. Okay. So that gives me a little bit of dead space to play with. There we go. And then at the end here, we don't need all of this jazz here. So we'll just delete all of that. So this is what we're going to work with, and that's what I'm going to bring into my multi-track. I could cut it in the multi-track, but this is just the way I do things. So if I hit Control New, that's Control N. Now it's this new multi-track session, and I'm just going to put that on here. And there we go. Here's the multi-track section. Now I'm going to take this shotgun waveform that we have been working on here. And if I zoom in on a track here and scroll, I'll zoom in on the actual like waveform. And if I put my mouse here, if I scroll, I can scroll up and down amongst the different tracks. And if I go here on the timeline, I can zoom in on my timeline and get nitty gritty. And this blue line here, this is the pan. So I can move things from the left to the right. But for me, I want to keep things at 0. Okay. Undo. Okay, I just hit Control Z to undo all that. But interesting tip, I don't do much vocal recordings because I'm not very comfortable with my voice yet, but the ones that I have done and I've experimented in the past, and from what I've been, because I like to go on like Reddit forums and Google things and go to the school of YouTube and just read and understand and learn things as much as possible and absorb things. And the human ear processes words with the right ear and like more musicality and abstract concepts with the left ear. So if you're recording a vocal track and you want people to really like hear and understand your lyrics, you can subconsciously play into them with their left and right channels by leaning your audio track a little bit more to the right and then leaning all your instrumental tracks just slightly to the left. And so when they're listening in their headphones or in their even in their stereo, in their car or whatever, the left to right, because the audio of the vocals are a little bit more heavy on the right side, just subtly, just it doesn't have to be by much, just a little bit more. That little play of making the vocals a little bit more prominent in the right ear and the abstract concepts of the instrumentals more on the left side, the brain will process the lyrics and its meaning a little bit better while still processing the musicality of everything happening in the background, said too. But that's when you um, go into those kinds of books where they study how your brain reacts to sound and music and all that kind of. It's fascinating stuff when you go down the rabbit hole of how do we hear things the way we hear them. How does this program do what it does? What does this process do? You learn a lot of stuff. So I'm concerned with the volume. This is the yellow bar. So when I am playing through things, you see there's two volume bars. So if I were to copy this and paste this into the timeline, like you can layer, you can do all kinds of stuff in Audition, but I'm using this to saturate the piano. So you can see as every single one I layered up, the master levels on the left, that's that big one, how much louder it is. It's hitting the red zone now. But the ones on the right, you can see each individual track, they're barely hitting like that. So, but as I thicken it, it gets a little bit louder and the piano sounds more full. So the quiet sections are still going to be quite quiet. And then the loud sections are the ones that are really hitting that. Oh, and you can see it broke 0. It gives you that flag. But now that I reset, okay, so now I reset that, so it doesn't say that I broke 0. Those little red dots tell you, oh, you broke 0. So when you export your track, there's going to be a harsh cut in the waveform. So you don't want that to happen in the master output. We'll get into that. So I want to maintain the integrity of the quiets to the louds and the feeling of the piano, but at the same time, I don't want the audio to get so quiet that you can barely hear things. And then all of a sudden it gets so loud where it's super jolting. Sometimes it's unavoidable with the nature of the song. So a lot of people, they like to just apply a compressor and they use it for volume and they sound your audio should peak and valley and have feeling and depth to it. But overall, when listening to things in headphones and through outputs, you want to exist between -12 and 0. Maybe even when you listen to a lot of classical music, it can go down to -20 to -1. There's a great peak and valley, and a lot of classical music, you'll turn it down because it gets really loud, and it gets this quiet part, and you're like, oh, I can barely hear it, and you turn it up, and all of a sudden the horns come and it gets really loud. So I'm going to kind of play with the volumetrics because the piano, it strikes, and when it strikes, that's the peak of the existence of the sound of the note, and then it immediately dies off. And if I were to cut things and balance things, because I'm very sustain heavy, a lot of piano players are, it warps and you want natural decay. I should have a recording of just a long note just decaying so I can show people what happens when you bring up the volume too fast as a note is decaying. But there's this weird trick of the ear with each strike, because that strike is kind of superseding everything else. You can nudge with each strike and bring things up to the quiet parts without affecting the natural decay and the way we process it. And you can actually, so I don't like using it. This is the equivalent of if I were to sit there with the volume thing and turn it up and down accordingly at these, right? And I can get down to really nitty gritty to where the felt just about like hits, you know, the string if you really wanted to. Like you can zoom way the crap in here so you can like see the waveform here. And if I were to like, because if I hold down the scroll button, it turns into a hand and I can kind of like move the waveform. So I can move along here and find my little point, move it here, find this little point here, and then I can, you know, really bring this down and bring this up from here. So now let's zoom out and then so here, let me bring this back up here. Like you see that how it just like immediately like warped down and then now it comes back up. Like you can play with this thing in so many different ways. Let me hit Control Z. Let me just undo all that. All right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna work with the one track. And I see like this note is super duper quiet. So I'm going to bring the volume up way here. Wait, there's a point still existing? Hold on, let me go into my history. Let me go back to open, bring this in. Okay, so I'm going to make a point here and now I'm manipulating the entire bar because that's my first point. So wherever I move it, we're bringing the volume up. So this is what I call my baseline. So because I have all these like super duper quiets here, like gosh, this is really quiet. So as I'm scrolling here, you can see it shows this is up by 4.3 dB. I'm going to start by bringing it up to like 7 dB. That's where I'm going to start at. And let all this play through. Then as we get here, we're going to slowly bring down the volume and then here a little bit more extreme. And then at this point, if I hover here, all right, so I can scroll here and I can grab this note here and do it right there. Because that's where it hits the next note. So now I have already brought down the volume, you know, so you can see this is already at the minus 2118. We're in the yellow zone. And now we're bringing down. And it still sounds natural. And that actually worked for me, but I'm gonna, to me, I think it was just a little bit too extreme. Let's do that here. And then from there, we're gonna gradually bring this down here and then bring this down here. And then here when I'm playing, I start playing quieter again and it goes and then it gets up again. So I don't want to be too drastic with this. So I'm going to bring up the volume here and I can see that probably about here is more strikes. Here there's a few more strikes and I can bring you up like this. And then from here there's a few more strikes. And then, you know what, we're looking at the overall picture here. We'll let all this kind of come up a little bit and then from here, we're gonna bring it down like this. Let's see if we can get away with that. Listen to that little. Yep, I can get away with that. And then from here, I'm gonna slightly bring this up like this. And then this is one of those like, I'm familiar with these waveforms because I play with this all the time. So I know where I'm going to be able to get away with things. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start from the top. I'm gonna hit play and I'm gonna zoom into where I left off. And I'm just gonna listen while I plot points and trace my waveform here to do like compensations for the way the notes are. something sounded off there. What did I do? This is where it gets iffy, these little points. It was this one here. So that was too much. So I needed to just like gradually turn that up. Gradually turn this up. Let that one ride a little bit. And then we'll turn this up here. All right, let's try that. I'm still not very happy with it. What is it about it? It's this one right here. So that one should actually just ride flat. That should ride flat. And then from here, we can gradually go up here. This should ride flat. And then from here, we can gradually go up here. And then that should, it's those decays. I need to let certain decays just kind of like ride flat before we start bringing things up to this zone here. All right, let's try that. That's better. All right, we fixed it. That's good. So now I'm going to stop this and we're going to go to the beginning here. I'm going to wait, hit the window button. Whoops. I'm going to copy that and we're going to paste this twice. Now we're going to listen to I just want to go to this loudest note here. Make sure we're not breaking zero. Oh, we didn't break zero there. Let's check here. Didn't break zero there. Check here. Oh, we broke zero there on the left channel. So this is everything at 0, 0, 0. So I'm going to go here on track 3, output -1, track 2, output -1. So now let's go back in there. Watch it. Make sure it doesn't break 0. All right, so that works. So now just one little extra measure that we can do is if we go back into this file here, I'm going to zoom in. This is the main thing that we're referencing. I'm looking at this peak, and this peak on the underside of it. Overall, I can actually squish those with the compressor without compromising everything else, and just to bring those strikes down just a smudge. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Effects. I'm going to go to Amplitude and Compression and go to Tube Modeled Compressor. And then I'm looking at my graph here of the dB output and the overall. So if I were to take this little box here and drag it out over and cover everything, I'm just looking at the left channel here, okay, because this is what we basically worked with. Okay, so you can see that's at the -9 mark. If I bring this down, then I start seeing everything else, and you can see more of those peaks popping up. And if I bring this down even more, like there's like the overall picture at -21. So this is what I'm visualizing when I'm looking at my audio and processing it. I'll do this really fast without even thinking about it. Really, I just kind of like stare at it for a while, and I'll be like, I'm gonna set my threshold to probably -9. That's probably gonna be enough to squish that. So I'm gonna hit -9 for my threshold output, and we're going to apply that. And now we'll see those drastic peaks kind of come down. And if I listen, I want to make sure it didn't get too squashy. So now when I go here, now this is important for later on. After I export this, we're going to normalize the audio and start doing like fine cuts and fades to make this sound perfect. And then when you normalize, we're going to bring things up just a smidge more, and that makes the quiet sections just that much louder, so they pick up a little better, and we exist more in that yellow-red zone between -15 and 0 dB. It goes to the green zone once you go below -18 dB, and that's the point of wanting to turn the volume up. So that's good. And now I'm going to go File and export the multi-track mixdown entire session. And I'm going to browse, and I'm going to go into my folder. This was yesterday, 10:10. And I hate that it does that. All right, so improv shotgun. I just select that one, and I'm going to override and say not shotgun. This is going to be MDO1. And for me, that means mixdown 1. So save it. So this is my final mix down of everything that I have done with my audio. And now I still have the shotgun microphone raw data here. If I hit Control P, that brings up the metadata, and that's where I can enter like my track title, artist information, the album, insert track art, all that kind of stuff. But we're still in a waveform, and just so you guys know, I record at 96,000 hertz, 24-bit audio, even though my inputs can actually record 120,000 hertz audio. You know, like the conversation about hertz frequency and bit rate is you want to record as big as possible. So that way when you're manipulating your audio, it doesn't collapse on you. Even though in the end game, you're going to end up at 44.1, that's 44,100 kilohertz at 16-bit audio. That's MP3 settings, you know, digital audio settings. And that's what you're going to end up at. But that doesn't mean you should record there. Because if you record there, you're going to save a lot of space. But what happens is because there's less bit depth and less of a hertz frequency range, you don't get enough headroom to manipulate audio with and do the things that you want to do to fine tune things. And then number two, the higher the bit rate, you know, the more you can start stretching things and moving things without your audio collapsing on you. And then after you process your audio at super high levels, then you can always reprocess down and export it as an MP3 at 44.1 16-bit, yada yada, or for video 48,000 24-bit for if you're working with audio for video. But if you're working, I'm doing audio for audio, just MP3. So I'm at 44.1 16-bit. If somebody wanted this audio for their video and they're working in like Adobe Premiere and they want the audio track, I'm going to make them a waveform that's at 48,000 hertz, 24-bit, and that's going to, work best with your video software. Nerd stuff. So that's where it is. So here. If I go into the shotgun, wait, let's go to the improv end good. So this is my raw audio. This is what we started with. So, and as you can see, this is with 0 on top. And this is the piece that we're looking at. And then I brought it in and I manipulated the audio and ended up with this. And then I did the multi-track to play with the volumetrics there. And I exported, and now I have this. This is my new waveform. So now if I hit Control-Shift-R, that disables the right channel, as you can see. So if I go into Effects, and I go to Amplitude and Compression, I'm going to normalize this process, and I normalize to minus 0.6 dB, just below 0. And if I hit Control-Shift-R, I reactivate that right channel. Now if I hit Control-Shift-L, I deactivate the left channel, so now everything that I do is only activating the right channel. And now I'm going to go here and go into Normalize under the Amplitude and Compression. And again, I'm going to apply that. We're normalized to minus 0.6. It just brings things up. And now, if I go to the beginning of the track, I'm going to grab my little magnifying glass thing and zoom in here. So the first note, there we go. That's where it hits at 1.55 seconds. So for my MP3s and my tracks, I like things that have like a 0.5, 0.6 second mark of silence. So I'm going to go here to that point there. And so that's the point. Here's 0.5 to 0.6, so about half a second of dead space. And as you can see, there's still a little bit of like nerdy. So I'm going to back here. Let me deselect. So let me zoom in here so you can see where the waveform exists. I'm going to this is called scrubbing. Blah, 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 blah. And so scrub. Come on. There. That's where that note starts to hit. The felt hits the string. So if I come back here a little bit and I go to probably, if I zoom in more, I'm looking for a point in the waveform where I have a nice existence of 00 that is completely kind of like silence in the waveform. So about here is good. So I'm going to select and zoom out and then select everything that exists below this point. And I'm going to take that amplify and bring it down. And now I can deselect that. Good. Whoops, zoomed out too much. Now, whoops, zoomed in too much. Now I'm going to go to the last note here. And here's where the note decays. And I want to see how much dead space I want for the decay to come and fade to 0 before it repeats 1. Because for me, the daily piano is a moment of zen. And there are sometimes you want to repeat a track and just listen to it for a while and just sit with it. And if I want to do that, I don't want the repeat 1 to be too abrupt. So I like to have like a moment of pause before it resets, that's in time with itself. So I'm going to listen to these last few notes. About there, I want it to reset because I can hear the notes decaying here in the headphones. And you can even see it visually. Let's go a little bit after that. So I'm going to take all that and delete that. And then I'm going to grab this there's like a little box here for fade out. I can grab this box and it brings up this little graph. And I can manipulate this fade however you want. You could hit Control and make it even more sharp. But what I'm doing is I'm dragging it out to this last note here. And that's where the decay is. And I'm just kind of emphasizing that decay. So I'm going to do it at 31. That's a nice little curve. And then for paranoia's sake, I'm going to grab it again and go halfway out to the end of that waveform and do a slightly more fade out. So I go into absolute 0 at the end before restarting at the beginning. So if I hit on my playback feature here, let me select the whole thing. If I hit Control L, that turns off the loop, turns on the loop, or whatever. So now I'm going to loop. So I'm going to see how this repeat runs. That's a good repeat one. I'll take it. So now that I'm listening to it, This is an improvisational piece. These flows happen in the moment, and let me stop this for a second. They don't have names. They're just improv. This is an improv. I'm just playing in the moment. This happened yesterday. I sang a few songs live, and then at the end, this just happened. This is just these things happen, and that's why my motto is always be recording. Um, I'm old, and I remember when we were confined to so many minutes on a ribbon, and that's why every moment mattered. Um, that you recorded. You only had so much ribbon. Uh, Now you can just record and record, 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 and if it's bad, just delete and start all over again. And keep going. And it's not gonna. You're not wasting ribbon. You're just going through your computer program, and that's where I get into the whole like where you record at because when you have a session, if you're having a practice session or live session, whatever, it only takes a few seconds before you start having your session to open up your program. Like once you get set up, like I have a setup. My microphone is always underneath the piano ready to go. The microphone is always there for me singing ready to go. I just have to turn on the computer, and open up my program, turn on the microphones, it just takes a moment. So before you're gonna have your session or whatever, just take those few moments. We call it the mice, like when you're cooking. You're going to get all your ingredients, before you start, putting together your dish. You gather all your ingredients and get them all set up. You're like, this is what I'm gonna be using, get it all prepped, and then we're gonna cook. So I'm gonna prep and then have a session. So always, get your computer going, get your microphones going, open up a new file, hit record. Now just play, just have your session. It doesn't matter if you're just having a dumb practice session. I call it a dumb practice session. I don't mean it that way. I'm sorry. It's not dumb. You have to like we're always practicing. We're always playing. So you might as well be recording. Always be recording because there are times when you're having a moment and like it just happens and you're like, oh, I wish I was recording that. We live in a world now where you can always be recording. Even if it's with your phone, like believe it or not, if you find the hotspot for where your phone sets for it's just like audio recording, you can bring that audio into a multi-track and you can work with it as long as you know it's hotspot so you get a clean recording that you're not like so close to it or playing too loud that your audio gets distorted unless that's what you want because there are some music where you want to push that and break that threshold. Um, but for acoustic music, like you just got to find the hot spot for your microphone and just record, 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 record. We have the space now with the computers and the technology that if your whole session was bust, whatever, you don't have to save it. You can just delete it. Yeah, there you go. But then if something happens, you're like, oh, there it is. Save it, save it, so that way you can work with it. That's the moral of the story, and that's why I record at 96,000 because it's big enough, but not too big, that I can still like run my live streaming software and like do other things with my computer, um, and I can get beefy enough audio to work with to make the daily piano happen. But the only way the daily piano can happen is if I'm recording, because for me, I flow in the moment a lot, and you can't just like turn it on and just go there. Like it's not one of those things. Like you're either there or you're not, and sometimes it takes a while to get there. So a lot of times, like you're playing, you're practicing your songs, blah blah blah, blah, and all of a sudden, like in the moment, you just get inspired, and all of a sudden, like this thing just comes out, and you're just like, ah. And that's the way I've always been my whole life. I've always made stuff up in the moment, but I didn't always have a recorder, because back then you had a tape and you had to record it, and you're just like, I need to set some time up for recording. Now I can just record all the freaking time. So always be recording. Every time you have a sit down, always be recording. So that way you get the stuff. And now that I've got the stuff, I have things to work with, and I've been able to release daily piano flows consistently for a long time now. So now I have to give this a name, but first I'm going to give it its date and put all that kind of stuff in. So I have to listen to the piece because they're entities and see what it tells me. What is your name? Bear with me as we listen. said her name is Duverilyn Varga. So that's what we're going with. I copied that. So now we go in here. This is my folder for all my completed stuff for October. Mix down 1 is no longer. It's just Live Kick YouTube Improv. And now I got to put in its name, Duverilyn Varga. And we're going to save that. So I'm saving the final thing. So I always have the raw recording, the shotgun recording, the mix down, and then the final thing. So here's the final thing. It's still uncompressed waveform, 96,000 hertz, 24-bit. So on the bottom right here, it's telling me that it's a 112 megabyte file. So if I hit Control-Shift-S, I'm saving it as again. But this time I'm going to go here and change it to MP3. And as you can see, a little yellow over here next to it. So I'm going to go to change because that flag says that's not a good setting because with the MP3 set to 96,000 24-bit, it's not going to play back. So there's all these different presets. And I have MP3, 16-bit, 44.1. And I do not use dithering. I have that disabled. It works the best for me. With my setup and the way that I'm recording, I'm not too adept at what all that means because I don't use it. So don't ask me about dithering. I just have that disabled. And now I'm going to browse and make sure that I'm saving in my MP3. So this is Patreon folder where I release daily piano. So here's September, all the MP3s I released last month every single day, but I always have the actual date of the recording. So even though today is October 11th, this song is October 10th. So I have that date in the file for the MP3, so that way if I need to go back and remaster it for CD production, if I use it in one of my future things, I know where the raw recording came from, what date it was actually recorded, and where to find that file. So that's why I do things the way that I do for Patreon. So we're saving that as an MP3 there. There we go. And now that it's an MP3 and it's done that, now I can incorporate track art. So I'm going to browse here in the metadata, and this is my folder of pictures from my phone. And my wife, she'll take pictures too and send them to me. And I crop them and Photoshop them to make track art. So the latest stuff, this is when I was at work and the goldenrod looked really nice. And I'm really like over photoshopping and doing some stuff. I don't know. I'm just making track art to fill in the blank. I think I'm trying to find like one that matches the vibe, We'll go with that one. I like that one. Save that. Okay, now I have the final MP3 saved. Now I'm going to open up my web browser, and here I'm in Patreon. This is my library of things that I have released. And then, again, I release every single day. So, and this is Patreon exclusive MP3 download access. My lowest tier, they have unlisted playlist access. And so after I drop this MP3 for all my upper tiers, which is my Fantastic Flowers and up, they get the daily MP3. I'll take that MP3 and I'll spectralize it and make a video for it to upload to YouTube later. And then that will be unlisted. And then I add it to the daily piano playlist. So if you go to YouTube, and it's playable on YouTube Music. So let me open up YouTube Music. And I have, this is October. So here's what I've done so far. And I have it set to the latest one first. So yesterday's track was Laurentia, and that's the top. And so if you hit play, this is what I mean by spectralizing. I use an MP3 player in my phone, and it's called Spectralizer. And whatever MP3s you have downloaded, it'll just like generate this visual, and you can change all the settings and colors and all that kind of stuff. And so I'll just play it and record it and put it out there just so there's some sort of visual to go with it. But at the end of the day, it's just all about having the audio playable so I can listen to it in my car and listen to it at work. And the unlisted playlist is available to all my tiers on Patreon. But if you want to get the actual high quality MP3 download, you have to be like, here's Laurentia, here's the MP3 download post. You have to be an actual higher tier, the Fantastic Flower and up, and then here's the MP3 that you can just click on and download on your phone, on your computer, whatever. So anyways, I'm going to go to create. We're going to go to create a post. We're going to leave this site, yes. So creating a brand new post in Patreon, they always update, and I love it because this used to be on like multiple pages, like all the different things, and now they've like actually crunched everything into one slick little area for anything you do. So up top we got video, audio, images. You can do a link if you have some sort of website link. You can do attachments of all kinds. You can do a poll. You can do a live stream. And then over here on the right, you can scroll here and like you can say this is going to be a paid access. This is from my Fantastic Flowers and up. And then you can go to more options and you can get like really nitty gritty with it if you really wanted to. And you can make it free if you wanted to, add it to a collection. And then as I do everything here, you can customize a preview. Make this a drop means that it'll be a countdown, and then everybody on your Patreon will know when it's going to drop, and they can all tune in. So, like, if you're going to do a live stream, you can schedule it as a drop that everybody will know that here's what comes and schedule everything. Or you can schedule it to set a publish date for whenever. You can just go into the calendar and schedule things. This will release next Monday, whatever, and then public another day. You can do whatever you want. But for me, I'm publishing now, so I'm just going to leave all that settings. The only thing I need to change is paid members only, just my Fantastic Flowers and up. We'll get this MP3 download. So I go into audio here, and this puts it into like a little player in Patreon where you can actually like listen to it. So I'm going to go into my October folder, do Very Lynn Varga. There she is. And then paste that title in here. This is 10/11/2025. Daily, and this is the 432 hertz grand piano, 432 hertz piano, and there we go. And then if I go here, there's a plus sign where you can add attachments, and I'm going to grab that MP3 one more time and attach it. This way, because those are like examples. All right. You can play the audio here. We're playing the MP3 through the web browser, through the internal player in Patreon. Not everybody knows to hit the little hamburger thing and find the download or whatever. But by doing the attachment at the end of my little blurb, there'll be a little blue thing that you can just click on. And even if you have it on the app on the phone, you can click on it and say, put this into ringtones, put this into music, put this into podcasts. Like you can put it into whatever folder. I always just download my stuff into my music folder. And then on my phone, I open up my Spectralizer app and I just get my latest track that I downloaded and listen to that and spectralize it for YouTube. So I'll listen to this. Wait, track art. I got to include the art. Otherwise, it'll just put my profile picture. So we went with that picture of the sunflower just outside, but it was that really interesting one that we over photoshopped in a very bizarre way. Where are you? Ah! Why can't I find you? Which sunflower were you? Oh, good Lord, really? Wait. Was it this one? No, it wasn't that one. Where is that flower? All right, let's go find it. It wasn't there. There's the butterflies, the pine tree, more sunflowers, more butterflies, lilies, clouds, flowers in the rain, apple trees. We got tulips, fire, the piano. Oh my gosh, where is that flower? I'm like trying to look row by row. Why can't I find you? What did I do? Oh, Lordy. Was it really that long ago that we took that picture? No, it wasn't. I don't know. You know what? At the end of the day, does it really matter? No, it doesn't. Yeah, we'll go with that one. I'm sorry, I'm going to restart that. I wasn't listening intently. I'm going to listen and type my little blurb to my supporters. Okay. All right, I think that's good. I'm going to publish. I don't want to do no Gemini. I'm anti-AI. Sorry. I am a real human being playing on a real piano, doing the real work myself, as you can see. So that's my world. Thank you for entertaining me as I make this post. So now that it's posted and my Patreons are notified, I need to leave this live stream and download the MP3 myself onto my phone so I can spectralize and do the next step of adding this to the playlist on YouTube. And then later on, I'll come back and play some piano live. I need to do some more recording and do another session, but lunch first.